Hey guys, this is Adam Kosna, and my project was on the Empire State Building. We're going to use ESB for short throughout this slide, and it's about the retrofit of one of the most iconic buildings in the world. So to get started off, we're going to talk about the project really quickly. As most of you know, this is one of the most iconic buildings in the world, located in New York City, specifically in the southern part of Midtown Manhattan, at the corner of 5th Avenue and 33rd, between 33rd and 34th Street. It was built in 1931, so it's not quite a century old yet, but it's approaching that three-quarter century mark. So it was a very old building before the retrofit was done. And still is. It maintains to be a very old building. 2.7 million square feet. So sort of the whole thing started in 2009. And on April 5th, 2009, President Bill Clinton, Mayor Bloomberg, and Anthony Malkin, who's the owner, announced the project. And keep that date in mind because we're going to talk about that during the laws and mandates section. So it was a groundbreaking retrofit that would later become a case study for buildings around the world due to its sort of innovative approach and how early it was done. It was almost a decade ago at this point when they started a meeting. And the retrofit was as much for tenant revival from a revenue standpoint as it was from a marketing and environmental action. So Anthony Malkin was actually quoted as saying, "I'm a capitalist first and foremost." So for him, it was just as much a business decision to sort of propel revenue forward and cash flows up as it was to actually be sustainable and environmentally friendly. So here you can see a list of the goals. The main goals were to develop a replicable model for retrofitting pre-war buildings, as we said, super old buildings. Develop practices to lower energy consumption by 20%, increase the overall environmental benefits, encourage the teams to be objective, creative, and proactive in the entire approach of the retrofit, develop a model that is marketable to existing and prospective tenants, which was huge on Malkin's list, coordinate with ongoing capital projects within the building, develop a financial structure, and of course hit some sustainability goals in terms of frameworks with LEED and Energy Star ratings. And you can see that one of the goals was to achieve a 38% energy savings, which you'll see later amounts to $4.4 million cost savings per year. And below you can see the Energy Star ratings from 2009 and onwards. And the goal was to achieve LEED Gold, which it ultimately did. So here's a list of the team. The ESB team included ESB Company LLC, which is Malkin Holdings. As we mentioned, Anthony Malkin was the head owner there. The Clinton Climate Initiative, Bill Clinton's sort of spearheaded it in the beginning for the marketing. They were the project advisors. Johnson Controls, they were the energy service providers. JL project manager, and Rocky Mountain Institute was the design partner and peer reviewer. So here you can see a really quick list of the key changes to the infrastructure of the actual building to propel it into LEED Gold and sort of achieve all the benchmarks that they wanted to. And this included building window refurbishment, radiator insulation retrofits, lighting, daylighting, and plug upgrades, air handler replacements, chiller plant retrofits, whole building control system upgrades, ventilation control upgrade, and tenant energy management systems, which is really cool. It allows tenants to sort of log in online and see if they're on target for sustainability goals in their month-to-month occupancies. So regulations, mandates, and rebates. This is sort of a quick little overview of sort of some of the groundbreaking mandates that were made by New York City. Right around the time that the ESB decided to go on with the retrofit, you can see in 2007 is the biggest thing, sort of the initial announcement to register all new construction and major renovations within USGBC, beginning in 2008, striving for LEED Silver. And of course, the Empire State Building hit LEED Gold. In 2009, Governor Patterson signed the Energy Research and Development Authority, or authorized the New York Star Energy Research and Development Authority to create and administer green residential building grant program to encourage construction of new homes and renovations of existing homes based on LEED criteria. And then in 2009, the State Green Building Construction Act was put into law, which affected office buildings. And you can see one of the most relevant ones here in 2009. All privately owned buildings over 50,000 square feet needed to measure and report on energy consumption, a first for any city in the nation. So New York City was very progressive with this. And then below you also see some tax abatements and tax deductions for energy efficient buildings. So here's a life cycle cost analysis. You can see everything that we had just mentioned previously, all the actual infrastructure changes that were made, and on the far right, that's sort of the most important thing you'll see is the estimated annual energy savings for each of those. And you can see that the total annual savings is $4.4 million. So that's the key takeaway there. Malkin Properties surprisingly actually self-financed this retrofit. It was $550 million total, and like we mentioned, the $4.4 million savings. So it was kind of interesting that Malkin Properties decided to self-finance this, but they were also sort of pioneers in this and using case studies across the nation and across the world later on. The Empire State Building was included in a REIT conversion that went public in 2013, and it's called the Empire State Realty Trust. It's important to note that this was after all the renovations were done. 20 buildings in total were done, which included 14 office buildings that lived up to a minimum of 15 out of 20 energy efficiency targets, including everything you see below. And this, of course, the Empire State Building paved the way for this sustainable portfolio, for the Empire State Realty Trust. So, closing thoughts. It was a groundbreaking green project that's paved the way for older buildings and set an example for them. It was one of the first mega retrofits in the progressive green New York City after sustainability laws were enacted, like we mentioned. Like I mentioned earlier in 2008 and 2009, all targets were hit, and they were able to hit their goal of $4.4 million cost savings. And it was also a model example for team assembly, kickoff meetings, and projections based on heavy analytics prior to the actual construction. Thanks, guys.